is going to, it is going to get accomplished much faster, as there are no competing internal priorities for the resources of your partner who's involved in BI or data analytics. So they have all the technology, and they have the right people with the right kind of experience who can deliver the results. So the biggest advantage that you get with outsourcing data analytics is that they're going to be bringing with them a wealth of experience across different industries, and also within your similar businesses and projects, and that will add value to your business. The biggest advantage that you're getting from outsourcing is basically in terms of cost and specialization expertise. So these are some of the advantages and disadvantages that the companies can think about when they're making a decision of whether they want to keep it in-house or they want to conduct outsourcing. I can give you some analytics in this respect. A survey that has been conducted recently in 2018 said that more than 50% of the responses from the organizations informed that at least 20% of their business analytics were outsourced. So these are some of the recent surveys that we have from the industry. Now, I want to go ahead and ask Eleni about her thoughts on outsourcing or not, whether to outsource or not to outsource.
Thank you, Dr. Pragati. I absolutely agree with you and what you exactly mentioned, advantages and disadvantages. And of course, is in each company's decision how they want to proceed, either to keep this department, the analytics in-house, or if they want to outsource it, or a third solution which has proven in my experience, especially in the financial sector, which is a very good combination, if you can combine both. So if you can have a team in-house, but also some more sophisticated projects that you need to do, or more advanced, and you want quick results, you can also outsource it to a specialized company on the analytics. So maybe sometimes it's also a good option to follow for some companies, the combination of both. So at the end is their decision. They have three options: in-house, outsource it, or combine both together and take the results they prefer to have. Usually, small, medium companies is good practice to outsource it. Larger corporate organizations, because they have also some data confidentiality things there that have some concerns and they don't feel so comfortable to outsource 100%. They want to have an in-house team. Also because maybe they have dynamic and everyday needs that they need to address, so they need someone there on the ground to work with them. So the larger organizations, usually they have the combination. The financial sector, I have seen they have a combination.
Right. Eleni, so you made one good point there regarding, having a combination of keeping some of the processes in-house versus outsourcing some of the business analytics. And in fact, data also shows that the companies that have opted for, the day-to-day analytics are being kept in-house, and then the specialized projects are being outsourced. They have kind of got the most success with business analytics outsourcing. And
exactly.
You also need to keep in mind that business analytics is always evolving. So you need newer projects. So then you again outsource. But once it becomes a routine, you can keep it in-house after that. Abhijit, what are your views on this topic?
So I have 2 point of views. One, I'm definitely reminded of C.K. Prahlad or Peter Drucker, both of whom stress upon the core activity of the organization. So one must look into how core is analytics to the functioning of the organization. Second is, am I able to give a growth path to the analytics team? Do I have enough analytics work to justify a 300 into 8 hours job for the whole team? If I don't have, then it is better that I outsource the parts. And if I do have a growth path, then it is better that we do it in-house. But more importantly, we must be clear about what we are outsourcing and why we are outsourcing. If those two things are taken care of, I think it's an easier decision. For example, I would say take an example of a company like, say, Agoda or or an Amazon. The core of the business is analytics. There, it is very difficult for the company to survive by outsourcing analytics activities, because you have to understand that when you are outsourcing something, a time delay occurs. If it
Yeah.
is in house, the time delay doesn't occur. But say some company like a manufacturing sector, where the core analytics job is once in a month or twice in a month, there it is not justified to incur the permanent cost of an analytics team. Again, the other thing that both of you have pointed out is the size of the organization. Am I ready to take the overheads of the analytics department? And it is not a cheap department. As Dr. Pragati was telling, these are very, very costly resources and very, very mercurial in nature. So having run an analytics firm for last 10-15 years, I know how difficult it is to retain the employees. The average turnover is around less than 2 years. So each time you are trying to develop a team, uh, some of the team members leave, and with them, a lot of intellectual capital leaves. A lot of things can be documented, but what you have taught, what you have experienced, it goes with the employee. So it's a restart from the beginning in most of the cases. So if you combine these three or four thought processes, you definitely arrive at a framework that, yes, whether I should outsource, whether I should outsource completely, or there are certain functions I should outsource, and so on and so forth. It's a very individual company's decision. It's not a generic rule.
All right. Thank you, Abhijit. So we were talking about whether or not to outsource. And in this, we talked about the advantages and disadvantages of what the companies can keep in mind related to whether they're related to their decision on outsourcing or keeping it in-house. Eleni pointed towards the balancing in-house and outsourcing of analytics and the size of business as a determinant to the outsourcing decision. And then Abhijit talked about the core functions, and what are the goals of the organization, as well as the cost of analytics and loss of intellectual property. So with that, we round up this topic, and I want to hand it over to Eleni for the next topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pragati. So the next topic we can discuss is, in case of outsourcing, if a company decides to outsource their analytics, what should be the organization's internal readiness? Yes, there are some things that they need to be in place up front so that the analytics company that will manage the analytics for the organization will have good results for them. So first of all, are all the departments of the organization aligned? IT, business, whoever else is involved in this and they want results, do they know their objectives? Have they all agreed that they want to go and outsource to an analytics company for whatever they need? They have to be all aligned. So senior management, stakeholders, they have to be aligned. Second, very important is they need to know their objectives. Okay, we outsource analytics, but what exactly in analytics? In analytics, very important is to know upfront what you are looking for. So, what are our objectives? What are the results we are looking for? What is the project that we will outsource? Of course, they are the analytics company with they are specialized. They can help the organization. They can analyze the data. They can propose them gaps. They can propose them things to improve further. So the objective and the results we are looking for is also the second important thing on the readiness we need to have. IT should be also there. Business should be also there because they need to drive. In my opinion, business should drive the analytics because business will have the decisions to make after they get the results. Business will drive exactly what they need. They have the needs. But IT is a very important also part of an organization because they need to be there to support, either to provide the data, either to provide the systems. Maybe they need some systems to work with. So IT is also very important role. So and business and IT should work together on this. a third part, more operational, is the data of the organizations. We have seen some organizations that they either don't store their data properly, or their data are not of good quality to be analyzed. So a third thing which is very important is the data quality. We need to make sure that there is data quality and data enough there so that we can apply analytics and they can give us good insights after we apply the analytics. And the fourth one is the organization to have taken the decision about the data confidentiality and how they want to proceed. So they are okay to share their data completely. They want to uh, make their data a little anonymous so that they don't have. So these more operational again things have to be in place upfront so that we have good collaboration with any outsourcing company to be able to work on the projects. These are, in my opinion, the most important topics and the readiness an organization needs before we even start outsourcing the analytics part. I don't know, Abhijit, maybe what's your opinion and your experience also on this?
No, I'll actually take it from an article I read from McKinsey, and they spoke about the value creation of the analytics process. Sandeep, if you can share the slide. Uh, so it's an interesting slide that McKinsey puts up, and it shows that there are 5 functions which coordinates for the value creation. So the first 3 are data, IT, and analytics, which are more of technical functions, and the second part is the people and process. These are business functions, but the most interesting part is there is a multiplication sign after each one. So you need to have all these elements in the peak of activity to realize the value. Any one of them not functioning properly goes down. So you can understand, I can debate about outsourcing analytics or insourcing analytics, but still the organization has to be ready on the other 4 parts also. So the data has to be good, the IT infrastructure has to support the data. Analytics, in my view, is a techno-commercial function where the team should know the business as well as IT. The fourth is the people. People, we mean is people like Eleni who are implementing the analytic outcome. So if I'm making a cross-sell model, there has to be a team which is implementing it on ground. So that team has to be extremely good. And fifth, but not the last one, is the process. There has to be a sync between all these 5 elements, different departments, different people. So it is extremely important that there is a top down approach to the whole value creation process. Either the strategy team of the organization or an outsourced team should come and put the processes in place, put the roles and responsibilities very clearly defined for each people. The IT infrastructure has to be able to support the data creation and data management, and the data itself has to be good. So if I look into it, the internal readiness is the most important part of the whole value creation process. Once the organization is ready, then we can think of where I place analytics in the whole organization. And that's a specialized job, but it doesn't start from the analytics team. It doesn't end from the analytics team. It starts from the business view. You cannot lie in a pool that I have this data, what can I do out of it? It doesn't happen like that, because data is endless. It has to start from the view that I want this for the business, whether data can help it. Then I start searching what data, how it will be managed, how it can be procured. It starts from that kind of vision, and it ends with the process and people. Eleni has been heading the CRM and analytics implementation team for a long, long time, and she's the one who is realizing it. She's the one who is identifying the shortcomings of the analytics process, pointing it out to the data scientists, and getting it ready again, isn't it? So it's like a balance that we need to achieve. Definitely, the internal readiness, as I told you, is not just from the analytics point of view, but it is also from the other 4 elements that we are talking about. The one thing that McKinsey talks very, very clearly is the readiness of the top management. If the top management is not ready, if the managers are not ready, if the business is not ready, no amount of software, no amount of intelligent people can create value for the organization. But
Abhijit.
once I start, and I'll take an example of the Kraft food. Uh, I think it is the first Fortune 500 company where the CEO is an ex-analytics head, and she was the first one who realized that analytics is actually driving business. Instead of forcing business, she actually acclimatized herself into the business itself. So that kind of readiness pushes the whole process or gives a thrust to the whole process.
Abhijit, I've got one thing. Since you said readiness part of it, I come from you said about the management intent, that is from the leadership
Absolutely.
intent. And then you said the readiness. One thing that, we keep on going back and forth is in terms of capability of the people to handle the analytics. Okay, and now that we're talking about the cultural shift now here. Now we're talking about the people's capability, skills and ability. Now we're talking about more of a skills, less of a the ornamental value of the the certifications and all. Now you have been working on in last discussion also we heard about the CHPA certification, and then you are working on a series of analytics skill based certifications which are certified sales analytics, certified logistics analytics, certified marketing analytics, certified digital marketing analytics, certified operational analytics. So how does it work that what kind of a content you have for the organization, and how practical it is in terms of the rise of analytics, which is bothering all of us post COVID-19. Yeah, give a glimpse of that.
Sandeep, if you remember last year when we were sitting together and we were discussing analytics, I told you my biggest botheration about the industry is analytics has become synonymous to data science. No doubt data science is an integral part of analytics, but you have to understand it begins from business, ends with business. What I'm trying to do with this series of courses is getting business ready to adopt analytics. They are not the ones who will be coding, but they should know what the code does. They should be able to make the framework for analytics. Say, if I take an example of the UID process that Dr. Pragati was talking about, somewhere somebody had the vision that if you can, the reachability of the population in India will ensure implementation of lot of related programs and will remove corruption by removing the middlemen out of there. Now that vision, if it was not there, you cannot start with the data and form there. So people like Nandan Nilekani, who was heading it, he's a core business guy. He understands how analytics was needed to implement certain strategies on ground. I need more of Nandan Nilekanis in the organization. The moment you start creating people who are good in business and who understand analytics, the work is done. The rest is a very operational decision that whether the company should outsource analytics or data science or do it in-house. These business people should be able to work with the data scientists. They should be the one who should be forming the frameworks. They should be the one defining what needs to be done. And then the operational work needs to be outsourced or get it done from a different in-house department. And that is what these courses are all about. I am trying to integrate business and the knowledge of analytics to form that core group of influencers or change managers or change agents in the organization, where you will see a lot of innovative ideas being implemented on ground through these people. So say when you talk about procurement have traditionally been that I get the order, I make the lowest bid and procure it. From a strategy point of view, you have to understand when the times are bad, have you identified your trustworthy suppliers? Have you scored your trustworthy suppliers who will remain with you in bad times? What is the probability that a particular supplier is sending you a not so good quality material? And that can only happen when I have been collecting data from a long time, that which supplier, how much delays they are making, what is the fluctuation of the price, what is the delivery time in terms of need, Are they bargaining during the times of need? So this will create an environment where every decision is taken with the backing of a data, and that is the whole course all about. None of the courses I'm telling that you should know Java or SAP programming or SaaS coding. No, if you know, it is well and good. It adds to your market value. But this course will definitely increase your business value. And I will ensure that from day one, they are adding value to the organization.
Yes, Eleni.
Yes. So on the organization's internal readiness, as Abhijit said, and he saw the nice slide of McKinsey, there are a lot of factors that need to be all aligned and all involved. I could use a description of it's a dance that all the stakeholders need to dance together. They have to be all aligned and to have the same objective so that this thing can really work and give value to the organization. And believe me, when it works, it will give value. I have seen it. I have seen the numbers, I have seen the KPIs, I have seen the results. But all these things have to be clear and ready from the beginning. When you settle these things and everybody is aligned, then everything will work perfectly fine. And of course, the most challenging is always to align all the stakeholders. When you go to a new organization, because I have worked in 2 banks, and it was the first time the team together built this department. The most difficult is to convince all the departments, all the businesses, for example, the credit cards department, the loans department, all of them, that this will give value to the organization. So this is the first challenge you face. As long as you pass this first challenge, then the rest come.
Absolutely.
So now the next, yeah, Abhijit, you're saying something?
Yeah. Just it hit my mind that
Yep.
if you see when the Kaizen theory initiated, the Six Sigma was not the beginning point. The beginning
Yeah.
point was somebody in the organization wanted to make error-free products. That was the core idea. Now, how to make the error-free product led to how do we calculate the number of errors that we are making. And when the production is in terms of millions, there is no other way but to use statistics to do it. And that's how the analytics came into the play within the business. So the readiness is from the business side, not from the technical side that we are talking about.
Yeah. Now let's say that all the fuss about the outsourcing and not outsourcing about the analytics is clear, and then the internal readiness is there, and then the management intent is there, and what Elena was saying, that all partners in the business are ready to dance together. Now, the next question is now is how to select the right outsourcing partner.
So I won't take this because throughout my life, I have been the one being selected. I have not been the one who is selecting. So I'll give it to Eleni because she was on the other side. And then obviously I can chip in with what makes me sad when I was not selected.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Abhijit. It's true. Yes, I have experience on selecting the partners that we have partnered for big analytic projects. So there are a lot of factors. I could say generally, mainly is the experience and what projects they had in the experience of a company, an analytics company, and on the same factor. For example, it may be an analytics company specialized not in financial sector, but they are very good in analytics, but not specialized in the financial sector. They don't have any background on any history in financial sector. So I would prefer someone who is good in analytics also, but specialized also in financial sector. So they have done some banking projects, they have some work to show us, some results to show us. So this is for me the main factor that will help choose a partner that you will work with. The second part we could say is the cost. The cost is also very important. Usually, the cost of the outsourcing analytic companies is not big difference Of course, when you see someone who is extremely very expensive, maybe as a company you cannot select it because you have a specific budget to spend on these items, on this topic. So cost is also a second factor that you have to consider. Experience and cost, I would say, are mainly this. Now, if you ask me if I had a small medium company, uh, then maybe the cost would be very high for me, and I had to select a startup company where they would say, I will do for it for you, but the resources of this startup company, they have good experience themselves in their background, in their CV, and I didn't want to spend much money. I would give it a try with a startup company as a small medium organization. I am sure if they have the passion and they could deliver something very good. So depending the size of the organization and how much budget they have for this, so there they will also estimate the experience on the projects that the outsourcing company has. These are mainly, in my experiences, the factors we have selected. I don't
Dr.
know,
Pragati.
Abhijit, if you can add.
I can speak with respect to like how any vendor selection is done. Say in government, and I'm sure that holds true for the businesses as well. So there are some minimum qualification criteria, right? So which apply to all organizations who are bidding for the for say whether it's data analytics or anything. So there will be the size of the organization, what is the turnover, how many employees there are, and then how many, say, engineers or specialized employees. So there will be certain minimum qualification criteria that each organization who's asking for third parties to bid is going to be looking at. And then after that comes the specialization aspect, which Eleni was talking about. And here again, we can go back to the readiness factor, the point that we just discussed. So how ready the organization that is going out for outsourcing is will decide the design of the requirements for the bidding party. So if you are well ready, if you know where you are going and what your current situation is, where you are at currently, your vision as well as your current situation will help you decide what are the requirements for your business analytics. So if you have a clear vision of what you want from your data or data analytics partner to provide, you will be able to design good requirements for what you're looking at from the bidding party. And also what is your current expertise, where you are at currently. So these things will help you define whether are you looking for productivity, are you looking for quality improvement, what are you looking to get at from the data. And it will and then the homework also brings in the aspects of, particularly because I worked on the UIDA project on data security and data privacy. So how is secure your partner is going to be, how are they going to bring in the security aspect or the data privacy aspect. Those can be built into your RFP or RFQs. These are some of the criteria this is how it can be designed to get a good partner. So your homework is also important here, your readiness.
Abhijit.
See, I would divide. First of all, we need to understand why we want to outsource the analytics job. There are certain cases where the job is clearly defined. For example, I remember one of my clients who had all the models running. They were having a very, very advanced BI division. What they wanted was an increase in the model efficiency by their expectation was 0.1%. Anything above that, they were fine with it, because an increase in efficiency of 1.1% was resulting in few $1 million. So in those cases, the experience is the foremost important thing. If a team has worked endlessly on high efficiency models in similar sector, that is the first criterion, because the problem is defined clearly. Then there are other places where they were expecting a problem solver to come in. In those cases, I think the business understanding played the major role. The moment the client gets comfortable that the party I'm talking to understand my business as good as me, then they feel the comfort that yes, they can develop a framework for the solution and give it to me. The third occasion is when they're actually starting an analytics team. They're looking for something of a build, operate, and transfer model. In that, the comfort of the team is extremely important with the agency. The comfort comes again first. Uh, who is the leader of the agency? The project manager, has he handled similar assignments earlier? Is he able to differentiate between symptoms and the actual problem? So a lot of times we have gone to clients and the clients have been able to explain us the problems that they are facing, and when we sat down, understood their whole business, we did a issue tree analysis and told them, see, what you are looking at is actually a symptom, the problem lies somewhere else. And they were extremely delighted because we could decode their business, and it happens very, very often. Once I have been able to decode their business, it will reflect on the models that we are building. So in those cases, the comfort is the most important thing. Pricing, definitely it is one of the key considerations, but my experience is a good agency will never want price to be the bottleneck. So they will always work with the client to make the pricing comfortable for both the sides. No business will work with any organization if there is no money involved in it. If I am an analytics firm, I'm not doing a social service, but I'm not doing cheating either. So it has to be comfortable from both sides. And I think the more transparent I am with the client, the more comfortable the client gets with me. And I don't hesitate to tell that there is a margin involved, and this is the margin, and let's work around it. Less than this margin, my overheads won't be covered. And that transparency reflects on the relation that I develop with the client. I think if these things are taken care of, any organization can outsource the right party to be involved with.
Now,
I
yeah, Dr. Pragati,
I
go
had
ahead.
just one point related to what Abhijit said. Like cost can be can be negotiated in a private organization, but in government organizations, many a times the lowest bidder gets the final
Absolutely.
contract, right?
Absolutely.
So before that, there is a process where the organizations get an opportunity. Suppose you have qualified for the minimum, qualification criteria. You have qualified. There are 10 organizations that qualified. Now they get an opportunity to, showcase what they
Yes.
have to offer to the client. So that's the opportunity that the outsourcing partner has to bring in, to show in all their expertise, like what they would be bringing in, or how they would be tackling with a particular situation. So that's their opportunity to showcase what they would do, and then that could be one of the criteria that could gain them some points, which will help them qualify for the next round. And then after that, it's the lowest bidder that gets the job.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think
So
that's
now-
what transparency is all about.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you have identified the outsourcing partner also, but the one question that looms almost every company's mind is about data security. There's a lot of questions, there's a lot of debate going around, that how secure it will be that if you outsource the analytics part to a third party. What will happen to my data? What will happen to my financial data? What will happen to my customers' data? What will happen to my strategy data? What will happen to my company data? Say, if I lose my main core data, then I'm going to lose my core competitiveness of my organization. So somebody else can chip in and he can identify which areas I'm focusing on if the person has access to the analytics. So the next question is, how secure is the outsourcing?
So,
Eleni.
yeah,
Yeah, yes, sure. So some companies, small, medium companies, they already have their data stored in cloud. I'm not talking about large corporate organizations. I'm talking about small, medium companies. The data of their clients are already in cloud. So then bring an outsourcing company to do your analytics is the same thing. It doesn't change anything for you or for the data confidentiality. You already have your data in cloud. The analytics company will connect to this cloud and they will work with your data there in this cloud. So this is fine, nothing there. The question mainly could be for the larger corporate organizations like banks, like maybe insurances, that they don't store their data in cloud because of data confidentiality and the customer's concerns. They have their data stored in servers in-house. So there is a big question mark. Some banks nowadays, I have seen that they outsource their analytics part, and either they technically I can say they mask their data, so they make their data anonymous and they share it with the company, so the analytics company can work with their data and they don't understand for whom is this data. They are anonymous. So this is one solution if someone has concerns for data confidentiality. The second is that the cloud nowadays has become very secure. So maybe a larger corporate organization, they are fine to share the data in cloud space as long as they know they are under a big player in the cloud space and they know their data are secure there. Uh, or a third one that I have seen happening is they outsource their analytics part in another analytics company, but the employees of the analytics company, they come and they work in-house. They work in the premises of the organization. So the data confidentiality has nothing to be afraid of. The employees are there and they work. And also, we have seen it mainly now with COVID, that a lot of companies, they give access to their employees to work from home. They have access to the data. So they have built already infrastructure secure, so the employee can be in their house and work with the data which are stored in-house. Something similar can be with an analytics company. So even if, to summarize, even if there are concerns for data confidentiality, if you want to outsource some projects analytics, there are ways that you can do it and keep your data confidentiality without no issues.
Perfect.
Yeah, Dr. Pragati, you have been handling major initiatives at the government level, and you have been handling billions of, monthly, quarterly, annually the data, and these are extremely highly sensitive data. This pertains to the citizens' data, and what is your take on? And I believe so, as we had discussed that in the entity you have worked, there were quite a number of organizations involved in outsourcing of the data. Yes, go ahead, please.
So first thing is that their organizations feel a risk in sharing data, which is understandable, and there is so the advice is that cover the aspect of data security in the outsourcing contract. So clearly describe the requirements, like what kind of environment should the data be stored in, what kind of security measures should be there, and also what are the liability imposed on the third party with regard to ensuring data security. Now, of course, liability and so defining these kind of measures and imposing liability, government is very good at that. Okay, and also there's a non-disclosure agreement that the third party is required to sign with the organization that is sharing the data with the third party. So there is a non-disclosure agreement signed, which kind of mentions all the kind of how the data will be stored and the security measures as well as the liabilities that would be imposed. So those are some of the things that can be done in beforehand, which can be part of the contract. But other than that, some of the things that Eleni had mentioned, like I have experienced at UIDAI, where the data was being collected by the government and the data was being stored in the government premises, but much of the data, even from collection to handling to storage, and processing was being done by the third parties, so private parties. Now there were there were strong contracts in place, but there were some very many other measures also which were there in place. So starting from data collection, say, so the third party that was collecting the data, there was a clear registration of all the machines as well as the operators who were handling the data. So there was a clear certification and registration. So we knew each operator that was working at a given machine. So we had the visibility to the last mile of who's handling the data, where, in what location. So, and then securing that data, once that is collected, like no one can tamper it, no one can tamper with the data by data encryption. And then transferring that data through secured lines. So this was for data collection and data transmission. Then once the data is at the back end, again, the data was being handled by third parties, but those third parties were entering into the premises of UIDI. So the premises were secured UIDI premises where the third party employees would come in and work on the data. But there were defined roles as to who gets access to what part of the data. So strictly defined roles as to who get access to what part of the data or what role do they play with the data. And they have to do it within the secure premises of UIDI. So you can't download the data, you can't take the data home with you, you can't copy the data, things like that. These are simple security measures that were in place. And then once we were sharing the data with the third parties, there were 3 parties involved who were engaged in checking the duplicates of biometrics, which was a heavily secure and sensitive data. There we used anonymization of data. So the third parties would get the biometrics for checking the duplicates, but they would not know whose biometrics these are. So anonymize the data. That is another way that organizations can think about data privacy and data security. So once the organizations that got the biometrics, they only gave the results in terms of whether or not there was a duplicate found. So yes or no, whether or not there was a duplicate, so whether it was a pass or a fail. They didn't know whose biometrics those were. So they could not put the fingerprints and connect it to a person. So that made it useless for them. So these are some of the measures that I've seen that worked at UIDAI.
One question is now, if data outsourcing is secure, which part of the data, you can outsource it to make it, the organization very, very secure part of it, which part of it? What is the keying in of the data, or analysis of the data, or the part of the post-analysis, creating a dashboard? Which part of the data you feel that it is most appropriate to be outsourced? Because a lot of time, people might say that, I would like to only outsource only this part of my data. Rest I would like to keep it in source. And because there'll be a lot of question in terms of, from the point of view of, security point of view, or maybe you can stage the data in outsourcing it. So Abhijit.
Okay.
Yeah, Abhijit.
Yeah, Sandeep, I would put it this way, because in today's context, most of the data that is generated is through the systems. So it need not be outsourced. Whenever the amount of data being collected is very, very huge, like the one Dr. Pragati was working in UID, it cannot be insourced. It has to be outsourced because there is a huge logistics problem in doing that. But you have to understand that before the process of data collection begins, there is a think tank that sits and defines the process. And the process is multi-layered. Now, the meaning of the data will only be useful for any other party when the complete data comes to him. That is rarely the case. But if you talk about organizational analytics, 99% of the cases, analytics is done on data which doesn't contain any identification details or contact details of the subjects. Once I remove the identification or the contact details, so the fingerprints, the face details, or the names, address, phone numbers, these are not required for any analytic process. These are only required for campaigns. And that campaign is usually handled in-house. Now, the risk of losing that kind of data is more with their internal teams than any external team. Even in case of bank, I have seen the sales team leaving with complete sets of their customers' details and join the other bank, which is a very common practice. And that is a breach of security, by the way. But if an analytics team says, or an outsourcing party says that I need the contact details, the intentions are not very, very right.
Yeah.
So what they will only need the variables which are not the contact details. Once you do that, the masking process is very simple. When it comes to production or quality kind of data, I think there every company has its separate individual meaning. So I say, and Google will not benefit much if it gets most of the data from Apple, because the DNA of both the organizations are very different.
Absolutely.
The strategies cannot be copied. The strategy has to be very individual. Hence, if I'm taking the worst case scenario, which is to save cost, I'm outsourcing and I'm sending the data outside, because I can outsource and ask the team to have a virtual access to my system and work on it. The worst case scenario is the data is going out. In that case, I think mask the data and don't give away anything which is contact data. Then anyway it is secured. A bunch of age data or demographic data doesn't make sense if I don't know whose age it is.
Yeah.
So whenever we are talking about, it has to be contextualized, because otherwise the problem becomes larger than what it is meant to be.
Yeah.
And that is the worst thing that can happen in any organization. Usually these issues are raised by IT, because they have become over the years so possessive about what they are doing that most of the cases they forgot that they're a support department rather than the core team.
Right.
So if that thing is in place, I don't think security is that big a concern for 90% of the cases. 10% definitely there are issues, everybody knows it, and we can work a solution around it. The best thing to do is ask the agency that how do you guarantee security of the data? If the agency is transparent enough, they will provide you a better solution than the internal solutions.
Dr. Pragati, you're saying
like what part of the data management or data's life cycle do you want to outsource depends again on your requirement, I would say. So what are your pain points, or what are you trying to achieve with data? That will help you decide what aspects of data management are you going to be outsourcing. So, for example, for UIDI, as Abhijit has already pointed out, it was a large-scale project, and we had to collect 1.2 billion plus of population's data across the country. So, given that situation, it was not possible to collect the data in the given timelines. We could have collected it by employing UIDI personnel into doing that, but then the timelines would have gone would have been way longer. So it was not feasible to collect the data in the required timelines, within the reasonable required timelines, without outsourcing. So we outsourced data collection as well. It was done by third parties, and there were other levels involved in between. So between UIDI and the third party, also there were several levels involved: the state government, the local government, and so on. But the entire process was outsourced because that was the requirement, and then the measures were taken to secure that data collection process in a manner that was sufficient. That gave the organization the confidence that the data collection will be done in a secure manner and the data transmission will be done in a secure manner. That also means we had the backing of the government and the power of the government, and therefore we could lay down secured lines to transmit the data. So dedicated lines for data transmission. Now that is not something that every organization can aspire to do, but government, of course, is a different ball game altogether. And then similarly, we had to give the entire immense data that we had at hand required third parties to be involved at different levels, at all levels, in fact. And also because we do not have the kind of expertise that we want with in-house in government, right? So within government, you may not find the in-house expertise to deal with that kind of data, to collect the data or to manage the data or to process the data, to do the deduplication, to do all the technological aspects of the data. So you don't have the in-house expertise. You do not have the required wavelength with the in-house personnel to be involved in that kind of work. That's a scale of work, and that is exactly what happens with that. Those are some of the things that will make a private organization also go for data analytics, because they don't have the in-house specialization, they don't have the wavelength of the in-house people to play that kind of a role. So those were exactly the kind of requirements that government also was facing, and because of which we required to outsource the data, all aspects of it actually.
Look,
Thank you, Dr.
Sorry, Sandeep.
Yeah, Abhijit.
If I'm right, Dr. Pragati, when we were building the UID data, it is only the biometric information that was collected through the outsourced parties. All the worries about sharing the bank details and all, these were data that was self initiated by the users at a later stage.
Yeah, we collected the demographic and biometric data. Demographic means
Perfect.
the name, address.
Absolutely.
The data was very minimal, so we were we were focused on collecting minimal data for example, we were collecting only name, address, and date of birth, and the phone number, mobile number, because that is how we were linking.
The contact details,
And then the biometrics. But the bank details, you're right, we were just collecting the information, consent from the resident, that whether they want to, would like to have a bank account open for them, because the financial inclusion was a big part of it. So we wanted to know whether the
organization was not involved.
No. So the third party was only collected because they were enrolling the residents. They were only there was only a tick mark where the resident would say, yes, we need a bank account to be open, a no-frills bank account to be open, and then it was between the individual and the bank. So you're right. The third party didn't have the banking information.
Right. So let's bring us to almost to the end of our today's discussion. So this was the series of analytics and a business series, and in last topic we had some glimpse of about how the analytics works in an organization. This time our topic was on, can analytics be outsourced? And next topic will be very interesting, which Abhijit will enlighten. Abhijit, what is the next topic coming up?
So what I was thinking was that we always talk about analytics as one of the departments using it, but in an actual business scenario, it's a symbiosis between various departments. Either the HR collaborates with marketing, the marketing collaborates with finance. So let's try to explore that when there is a collaboration between two departments, what role can analytics play in enhancing the results? So for example, say if I'm talking about employee attrition, so the operations department, say, of a call center is equally responsible as the HR of that organization in determining how the attrition should be managed. Now, a part of the data which is performance comes from one department, the other part comes from another department. Let's see how interestingly we can amalgamate analytics into it.
Brilliant. For today's discussion, Dr. Pragati would like to summarize. So we'll have a summarize from all three of you, and then we will conclude today's discussion.
I think we had a fruitful discussion today related to data outsourcing, and we began with the general discussion of whether or not we should outsource, and then we touched based on important aspects of the organization's readiness to be, or the inclination of the management as well as of the various processes to adopt data analytics and outsourcing of data analytics. And then we talked about how what are the requirements for data analytics, and then how secure it is to outsource. So I think we all in all we had a very good discussion, and I hope the people who have joined and have clear takeaways from today's discussion for making decisions.
Eleni.
Yes, exactly. This today was a very interesting discussion of if analytics can be outsourced. The main result from this discussion, I could say, or the main thing is this depends on each organization. Is their decision what strategy they want to follow. But if they decide to outsource it, yes, they can. And they have their advantages, yes, they have. And they can hire a company that they are specialized to do this and in a very quick time to deliver them very good results and with lower cost than having in-house an analytics department. Yes, the answer is yes in all these things. So if they decide to do it, there are ways to do it, and there are ways to do it with data security and data confidentiality, and the result will be good for them also.
Abhijit.
I think it was a lively discussion. My take would be that rather than outsourcing, internal readiness is a more important topic. Once we seed in people who are knowledgeable about analytics, knowledgeable about the business, these are decisions which will be easily taken in house rather than looking at externally somebody telling the organization whether to outsource analytics or not. So the key is that if we have informed people inside the organization, they are more than capable of taking such decisions internally.
Thank you, Abhijit. So this is the part of our series of discussion on analytics and business brought to you by Global Society of Human Capital Management. And we will continue this series till we get to the end of the entire part of the component of analytics and the business. Now, today, before we conclude, today we have a very, very special day. Abhijit, his daughter was birthday is today. So what's the daughter's name?
Come. Don't be shy. So this is my 8-year-old.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! So we're going to sing you today. Happy birthday! What's her name? What's her name?
What's it?
Tita.
Dita.
Tina.
Dita.
Rita.
Dita.
Okay, we sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dita. Happy birthday to you. So you enjoy your birthday. And thank you, Dr. Pragati, joining us from US, and Elena joining from Greece, and Abhijit from India, and we are from Middle East and Africa region, Global Society of Human Capital Management. Thank you all. We'll see you again next week in a fantastic next talk. Happy birthday to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.